Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome you all the final session of the National Symposium on Frontiers in Physics Teaching conducted by the Department of Physics. A teacher plays a vital role in the learning and the life of a student. A teacher's role is to make the students engage in learning by providing them a dynamic classroom environment, incorporating diverse teaching methods, tailoring contents to students' interest. This session is going to led by Dr. Edamana Prasad. Sir, welcome you, sir. Sir is the Department of Chemistry, IITMadras. He is also the Head of Teaching Learning Center, IITMadras. This will help the teachers to learn and train in how to deliver an engaging learning environment. Now I call Midun Krishna, second BSc Physics, to give a brief introduction on our speaker. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a privilege to have Professor Dr. Edamana Prasad sir for this session. We are honored to introduce Dr. Edamana Prasad sir. He is the Professor of Department of Chemistry at the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras in Chennai. He earned his Bachelor's of Science and Master of Science degrees from Calicut University, Kerala between 1990 and 1995 and completed his PhD in the Photophysical Chemistry at the National Institute of Interdisciplinary Science and Technology, Trivandrum in 2000. Following his doctorate, Dr. Prasad undertook postdoctoral research from 2001 to 2006 at institutions including Texas Tech University and Lehigh University in the USA, as well as the University of Bonn in Germany. In addition to his research, Dr. Prasad has been actively involved in enhancing the teaching learning process in higher education. He served as the head of Teaching Learning Center at IIT Madras, where he led initiatives to improve education methodologies. Dr. Prasad has received several accolades, including the Alexander von Humboldt Fellowship in 2002 and the Young Faculty Recognition Award from IIT Madras in 2011. Sir has, to its credits, many publications in research papers in international journals. Being the head of Teaching Learning Center, Sir has conducted many workshops on training teachers on how to deliver an engaging learning sessions. Sir will be conducting hands-on experiments to the participants in this session. Amidst his busy schedule, Sir has come to share his knowledge with our participants. It's a pleasure to welcome you, sir. We are looking forward for your knowledgeable inputs.
Straight into the business. We are talking about how to engage learners, right? Can you go to the next slide? You're all physics teachers, I suppose. So you have a question on the slide. I want you to think about that question and then come up with an answer. Keep that answer in mind. So, madam, can you tell whatever comes to your mind to that question? Did you read the question? Sit down, sit down. No need to stand up. Please sit down.
Some are school teachers.
School teachers, that's even better. Because school teachers knows methodology.
So 8th grade, fourth chapter.
Right.
Yes.
That is what you are going to teach, assuming.
Yeah.
One expected learning in that chapter.
Expected learning outcome.
Yeah, your expectation. It may be the outcome, it may not be the outcome, but I mean, what is
They
it?
will be able to know what is force and their types and how it is involved in the daily life.
Okay. Students will be able to know the concept of force.
Yeah.
Right? That's one expectation. Now, like what Madam said, every teacher has some expectation about learning. And as you rightly said, they're called learning outcome. The issue is when we design such expectations, are we ourselves clear as teachers what exactly a student is supposed to do? When we say they should know force, what does it mean? Many times we say that they should understand the basic concepts. They should learn fundamentals. What are these statements? What do they mean? When somebody is learning force or basic concepts in physics, unless we are clear in our mind what the student is supposed to do with the force. We are not actually getting clarity for ourselves as well as for students. So the first part of this engaging, how to engage learners is teachers should have clarity first. What is that you want them to engage with? Otherwise, how do you plan to engage learners? So, next slide. When we write this expected learning, like know force, understand force, what we are trying to say is these are my expectations on learning. Ideally, a teacher should ask these two questions before they start writing the expectations. There are two questions or two challenges for every teacher to design such expectations. Okay. First challenge is what should my students be able to do as a result of my teaching? Like I said, what do they do with the force? That should be clear to us as a teacher. Next question is what cognitive level the student should perform. Cognition means thinking. So we want them to think. All of us want the students to think. But thinking is not just one layer process. Thinking has several layers. So what kind of thinking? What level of thinking? See, unless these things are clear to you, it may not be possible for you to engage learners. Simply going to a class, giving a fantastic lecture is not going to engage the current generation and for the upcoming generation. You are simply wasting your time and others. So keep these questions in mind. Please go to the next slide. We'll skip this because there's no time. Next. Stop. So I want you to just pay attention to this slide, which we are going to do now. When you write learning outcome, ensure that there is an action verb or there is a verb describing an observable action from the student. Okay, you want them to do something with respect to force, for example. What exactly they will do with the force? There should be an action. Okay, what action we need to discuss. And also, what kind of thinking they should be engaging when they actually do this action. This thinking is coming from learning taxonomy. The most famous taxonomy is Bloom's taxonomy. Everybody knows these days, right? So there are different levels of thinking. How many of you have not heard about Bloom's taxonomy? Everyone heard about? You don't? Okay. So there are some taxonomy means classification. So there are some classification on how learners think. There are different levels of thinking process. I'll show you the taxonomy also. But to write the expected learning, teachers should address these two challenges. First thing is, whatever concept that you are teaching, ask yourself what you want the students to do with the concept. Point number one. And when they actually do something with that concept, calculate force, for example, right? Something they're doing with that concept. When they do that concept, what level of thinking they are involved? Okay, so let us quickly do an exercise. I want you to take that physics course that you're teaching. Write one expected learning in this format, addressing those two challenges. What you want them to do with certain concepts and what level of thinking you think they will be involved. If you want the level of thinking, I can show you the level of thinking. Just go down. This is called Bloom's taxonomy. People use it schools as well as in B.Ed. You must have learned this. In higher education also people use this taxonomy. It's just that there are several levels of thinking. Some involves memory, remember level. Something is conceptual clarity. Sometimes you want to use the concept. Sometimes you want them to analyze the concept or evaluate or create. These are different levels of thinking. What I want to do is, again, please go back to that. Yeah. I want you to write one expected learning addressing these two challenges. Please go ahead. If you have any confusion, please raise your hand. I'll come back and explain to you. Writing means taking a pen and paper and pen rolling in the paper. That's what writing means. I can, but I will not do right now. After you write, I will give you example. So if you don't know what to proceed, please ask what is your question. You are students, right? Physics students. Okay, you think about a course that you are learning and imagine that you are teaching that course. So you want the students to learn something from that course. That's the learning outcome. So learning outcome should tell something that you want the students to do. Okay, so write it that first. Take a concept of physics. You want them to learn it. When we say learn, that means you want the students to do something with that concept. In terms of thinking, do means not physically doing. Okay, so we will get one or two inputs. Now you want to try? Yeah.
So first of all, I'm taking a general course on astronomy
Okay.
for all college students. So
Okay.
therefore, the
Please.
simplest explanation, the simplest expectation, the simplest expectation from my students is at the end of the course, the student is expected to remember how a star is formed. Remember is the verb.
Okay.
Verb which I.
So now here is a very interesting point. Can you go to that table? One more. Yeah. So there is a level of thinking called remember, which essentially means that the student use the memory of that learner for, in this case, remember how the stars are born. Now we need to also ask whether in that sentence, when they read it, is it clear that what student is doing? Yes, student is remembering. Now we had one more condition for that activity. Students doing. Go back. Stop. What is that condition? Whatever student should be doing should be observable. That means I will be able to observe what the student is doing. Now the student is remembering. Can we observe? What do you think? When somebody is remembering something,
Maybe if we check asking questions.
that's the next level. By just observation, difficult, right? So this is where the learning outcome design has to be a bit more. How do we put it in words? We have some intentions of teaching, but is it clear to another person, a third person, or even to the learner when we try to communicate with them? Now here we need to modify this in such a way that how do I know that they actually remember the origin of stars? We, as you said, we ask another question. In that second question, there will be an observable action. I'm sure about it. Because without an observable action from learner, a teacher cannot assess learning. There has to be something finally you demand them to do. That part is your expected skill. So when you write learning outcome, think through like this. You can write first layer of intentions. It may not be very clear. Then you, as you rightly said, how do I check it? How do I verify it? Then comes automatically another question. That question will obviously carry that, okay, now they are doing something. They will be writing a paragraph about origin of stars. So write is the verb. So write that you need to go layer by layer till you see student is doing something. To engage them, First thing what we want is identify this. What do you want them to do? So, madam, force, anything that you want to say? What do you want them to do with the force?
I'll generally ask them.
Hmm.
I'll generally ask them when you do any actions like how did I start this chapter? No, when you go for any public general places, push and pull. What does it mean? So when you push, that means the force is there. Like that.
That's okay. That is how we take the class. I agree. That's a good way. Finally, what do you want them to, in terms of learning force? What do you want them to do? That's called the learning outcome. So you conduct the entire class. Finally, what do you want them to achieve?
For example, I'm taking a topic on escapes with gravitation.
Okay.
So it's a derivation of.
Okay.
So I explain it using a board and chalk.
Okay.
And then I put a derivation.
Okay.
By simply he's copying it, I can't come to a conclusion he understood.
Right. So what do you want them to do?
So if you ask question or relevantly what is all about, can you give an example of how where it is used? I may end up saying an answer. He might come up to a little bit closer to my thoughts.
So in this particular case, what you are saying that you want the students to come up with an example.
Yeah.
Maybe that is one expectation. But that is something which is observable. Somebody is providing an example. Sometimes teachers say, I want them to derive this by themselves. That is also observable. So now we are getting examples. Somebody wanted example, right? Yeah. So what happened is, unless we tell that this is what students want to do as a result of my teaching, that is called the expected learning or outcomes. So first thing before you go to the class for teaching anything, physics, chemistry, maths, language, doesn't matter. Do you have clarity in expectations? That's a question. Simply making some statement doesn't cut the ice. Okay, we need to have clarity. Finally, so calculation of force, something like that. How students will calculate? That's an expectation. That is observable. Now, to calculate, what level of thinking is involved? Like sir said, can they? So can they just? So some calculations are just memory-based calculation. Some very simple calculation. Some may be like there should be a concept to use. Then they're applying the concept. So like that, you need to use that taxonomy table and then place it properly where the level of thinking is involved. So designing expectation is not an easy job. So why we are talking about design expectation in this session is, unless we have a clarity on your learning expectation, it's almost impossible to engage learners. Okay, so first thing is have a set of expectations. Now let us go to the engagement part. Go. Stop, go. One more backward. Yeah. Examples. So here what we are seeing is the expectations are spelled specifically. Like they will be able to explain a theory. And the level that is involved is understand level. They will be able to calculate something. It can be some calculations are in the apply level, some calculations are in the analyze level. These are all different levels, which means difficulty of calculation is varying. That's what essentially it means. Okay, so unless a teacher gets clarity, okay, I have this list with me and I want to develop these skill set in my students, and my entire semester is for developing these skills. So I'll be giving a lot of work in the class for students to do these things. They'll be calculating something, and that's how how do people get skill? There's only one way. Skill comes through practice. There is no other way. Not by listening to somebody, not by looking at somebody, not by watching something. You will not get skill. Skill is a function of practice. More you do, better you become. That's all. So engaging learners is invariably, I'll be engaging by these outcomes. Outcomes are for engaging, not for accreditation body. Now, college teachers are undergoing some process called accreditation. So somebody is coming and seeing whether they are writing outcomes. But that is not the idea. Idea of outcome is you need to use these outcomes in classroom for practicing them. That's why there has to be an observable action so that you can observe when they do the practice. Next, please. It doesn't depends upon subject. You can write your expectation in a very clear fashion for all subjects. Here is an example for music. Next. Calculate, sketch. Yeah.
So when I said remember, so you said, sir, it's not clear
Right.
how you're going to test it.
Right.
But here explain, it can be verbal just by conducting a seminar. So should we explicitly say it can be written examination for assessment?
Right. So at least now the first step is at least have a action word which is observable. Now the implementation of that action word in a written or a verbal or in a what context is something that not mandatory now. At least not expected to write that detail. That is a part of implementing this. On design part, you need to have an observable action. That is a non-negotiable condition for outcome design. This is only for getting clarity. Otherwise, it may be clear to you as a subject expert. But for a novice, a student doesn't know what to do. I'm learning force. What do I do with force? So tell that, okay, the intention is calculate force. So now it is clear. Okay? Yeah.
The way in which you presented the previous slide.
Okay, go back. Music. Okay.
The one before that.
Okay, one more.
Yeah. So this becomes extremely helpful because it's bold.
Yeah.
The fonts are bold. The
Yes.
words are in bold fonts.
The student also get focused
So
there.
I think in our design also we should make this explicitly bold. So
Right.
we insist on students to know that this is an outcome.
So student can check at the end whether I'm able developing this skill. Another teacher can check. You can check. So this is what everybody comes on the same page. That's the idea of outcomes. Okay. We'll go to next. Any quick question on this outcome design? To engage a learner, you need this outcome. Okay. Next. So we are now in this stage where all subjects are taught by syllabus. Now we are moving to an outcome-based teaching. To me, syllabus is it basically list of topics. Syllabus is nothing but a list of topics. You are not telling the students what you do with the topics. Whereas outcomes will tell students will be expected to do what they will be expected to do with the content. So syllabus is force. Outcome is what you do with the force. Syllabus is moment of inertia. Outcome will be what you do with the moment of inertia. So like that, what exactly you are expecting them to do is called outcome. Next. To engage the learners, whether it is a large hall like this or even 30 students, you need to do a few things. It's a complicated topic because there are several aspects to it. One is whether the learner really wants to learn, how much motivated they are. Okay, there are ways to kickstart motivation, but very complicated topic. Second thing is whether teacher asks challenging questions during the class and allow time to work on it. Or teacher is simply standing on the dais and then giving a verbal diarrhea. Whether teacher provides feedback on the students' work. Students do something, you need to ask, they tell, then you tell your feedback on that. Actually, students learn from feedback, not from examples. Many teachers, honestly, they try to help the students by, for example, for example, this is how we always tell in class. Because with good intention, we want them to learn. But people don't learn from exam. Or in other words, people learn better from your feedback on their work, not by example that you provide. So let us quickly do. Half an hour is extremely challenging. Let us see. Okay, next. No, 4 o'clock is the time given. No problem, that doesn't matter. Input from participants for motivation. Okay, this is a $1 million question. How to motivate learners? Give me some ideas.
By telling real life examples,
Okay,
by asking them questions what they know already.
okay. Students, what do you expect teacher to do so that you will get motivated?
Good afternoon, sir. First, I will not say the topic when I enter. So they will be having what topic we are going to discuss. Then I will give a spark. Then I will ask them point by point by point by point. At last, they will conclude the topic what we are going to learn. So that is how I used to start the lesson.
Okay.
For example, next I'm going to take with light lesson. So previous day itself, I will inform the students to bring mirrors or whatever they are having, small mirrors, whatever. So once they enter into the class, they will be having some idea, light only we are going to start.
Right.
But I will just not write anything. So I will just start. We are going to discuss. First I will start like this.
Okay.
So then they will come up with one point or something else.
Okay.
So from that, any one of the student will give the lead for the topic we have. So then from that, I will just start and I will come to the conclusion of the topic.
Okay. So at least what you are trying to do is you are basically get the topic from the students by engaging through a series of questions. Okay, fine. Somebody from here. How to motivate people, learners?
I will create more questions. Actually, I will make them the questions. And I will write all the questions.
Okay, you collect questions from them.
Yeah. Finally,
Okay.
I will guide them to form a question also.
Okay.
By giving some hints and creating to. Otherwise, I am making them to ask why,
So-
how, what.
Okay, so all these examples so far have come is having one trend line. You are trying to engage them through different ways, right? You are basically engaging the learners or you are taking them into consideration in the teaching learning process. Any other different way of doing?
By showing some demonstrations.
Demo, okay.
Trying to share their experience.
Trying to share your experience or their own experience, okay.
Related to the topic.
Okay.
Like A, B,
Hmm.
I part the class into two.
Okay.
I will tell the students to tell the related words.
Okay, gamification, right? Yeah, so gamification is another way of engaging learners. Anybody? So here we are, before engaging, what we are trying to see is motivation, right? How to motivate them to get engaged. That is the most important thing, right? So there are 3 things about motivation. One is called autonomy, another one is called mastery, and the third one is purpose. So far the example that you have given, come to the last part, purpose. So when the student comes into your class, you ask them questions, you collect something from them, you engage them through games. All these things give a sense of belonging. I am here with no purpose. Teacher is asking me, teacher is calling my name, teacher asked me to do something, write something, take some example from you. So everything is giving a sense of belonging to you. It gives a purpose to come to your class. So that's an element of motivation. Imagine you can also take the class without asking any question. Nobody is going to ban you. Then the level of motivation will be relatively less. Now I'm not talking about a case where teacher is putting you in a spotlight by asking difficult question, mocking you. That's not the situation. Teacher is having a very friendly conversation, but engaging you through a lot of questions and consider you as a colleague or a learning partner. We are all learning together. So that kind of an atmosphere creation is called providing a purpose to come to your class. The first one is autonomy. Autonomy, autonomous institute, these things you heard about now. Autonomy essentially means you have choice how to do things. The difficult question for you now is how can you provide autonomy to students in learning things? We normally don't do that. We always say learn this. Is there a choice? No. So if you really want to motivate students, think in this line. What are your options to promote autonomy of your students? Not that easy, but if you can convince them that they also decide things in the conduct of the course, that motivates students. In IIT, I mean, it may not be possible in every place. We have post-dinner class because class majority of the students want like that. So the timetable slot, now they are saying when to conduct. So after 9 o'clock, we assemble and then we have a 1 hour class. What happened now? Students decide. They have the autonomy now. This is only one example. What works in Vaishnava College or wherever you are coming from, that you need to think about. But the idea is that student is deciding certain things in the course conduct. That's called autonomy of students. That motivates them. Mastery. Mastery development. Whom you call a master? Master is a person who is adept to the situations. Whatever may be the situations, he or she will be able to handle that situation in that particular content or context. So that is called master. So now you want your students to be in this level, mastery level. When a student start experiencing that by sitting in your class, they are developing mastery. Then they will get motivated. They are investing 1 hour and nothing happened before 1 hour, after 1 hour. What is the motivation? Why should I sit there? So if you, as a teacher, if you can convince them that okay, something changed after this because of this interaction, that motivates people. So if you really want to work on motivation, there are things to do. Okay, we cannot go very detailed, but this is actually a 90-minute session. The 3 words we'll discuss about whenever we get a time and different time, but a different opportunity. Yeah, go next slide. Now, one of the ways to engage the class cognitively in a thinking fashion. Next slide. One particular method, which is very general, we'll discuss, and one specific method also, only for physics teachers. Next. Yeah. I want you to look at this and tell me what did you understand from this cartoon representation, which is a method of taking the class. Take a minute. You can also talk to each other. I will request some of you to explain what you understand.
Sorry. So in the 40 minutes class, something like 10 to 12 minutes of lecture, and because of concentration power of a human being, it's minimum like 15 to 15 minutes. So 10 to 15 minutes of taking lectures, 3 to 4 minutes of engaging them in some other activities, and again explaining the core subject, and again practical explanation.
Okay, so the general picture is clear. Like what she said, don't do a monotonous one-way lecture if you want to engage learners. Okay, intellectually engage. Engaging is okay if you have a very, like one of the fantastic orator, you can engage learners, but that may not be an intellectual engagement. They'll be just hearing you. If you really want them intellectually engage, there is something like you need to stop at some point. Sooner the better, but they give 10 minutes. 10 minutes contains lot of parameters: attention span, retention span. There are many things. The idea is that don't talk continuously. It is waste of time, because when the information keep coming, earlier information get erased. Nobody can get all this information and store it properly. So stop at some point. Ask them some challenging question. Let them work on it. See, when you when somebody is asking you a question versus you just hear that person, In which situation you will be alert? Obviously, when a question is posed to you, that is the degree of alertness. You yourself can experience it. So people have done these experiments, like they map their brain with the devices. You can do this brain mapping. Somebody is watching TV, their brain is mapped. So the chart was like this, a horizontal line. Same person was sleeping. When his brain function was mapped, it was like this. What does it mean? The sleeping person's brain is more active than a person who is simply watch something. Many of our classes are TV shows. Their brain is not getting active. So pause, ask question. So then they becomes alert. Then you can stop this activity, continue. This is one particular way of conducting the class. It is called book and lecture model because this cartoon representation looks like a bookshelf. That's all. There is something called advanced organizing here, which essentially means that you organize your learners in advance. When you go to classroom, don't simply go to the board and start teaching. Like something you do in the beginning of the class to arrange them, organize them for that topic. Then you start the lecture, and towards the end, that's a summary. So what I want you to do now is go to next. I want you to tell me one advanced organizer, one learning activity, one summary activity in a physics class. Go ahead. Now, if you are stuck, please ask. I'm not a mind reader. You need to tell me. Advanced organizer. Is it clear the idea of advanced organizer? What is advanced organizer? The previous slide. Can you go to the previous slide? So there is something here, no? Advanced organizing. Is it clear what is it mean?
Like giving a preview of what they are going to teach.
That's an example. But what is the idea of advanced organizing? You're right. So why are you giving a preview? What is the idea?
Like for example, in the lecture, if I'm going to take about the electromagnetism, I need to give a clear overview of what I'm going to discuss.
No. So this has nothing to do with the content. Advanced organizer has nothing to do with the electromagnetism, if that is a class. Advanced organizer is something that you do to organize the learners in advance. Okay, to just get everybody's attention in the class towards electromagnetism. That is the idea. Before you start electromagnetism, you need to get everybody in the class focused towards that topic. That is called advanced organizing. So I wanted to think, how can we do it? One example. So go to the next slide. One example of advanced organizing activity.
Opposite actions. Doing opposite actions. Brain activities.
Can you give a very specific example for any topic? You can choose your topic, but say this is the advanced organizing. Remember, advanced organizing has nothing to do with the content as such. It's about getting everybody in the class, their attention, focus, etc. towards the topic. Yes, demo can be an advanced organizing. Very short demo. Don't spend too much time on the demo. I'm not a great fan of demo in the sense that demo is again watching, no? People are watching. But that can be a good advanced organizer, just very short. Any other example?
Story of a great scientist like Faraday.
Yeah, suppose you are teaching about Faraday's laws or something, Faraday's story or Faraday. See, story, the problem with the story is storytelling has some components. Even though it's a 1 minute story, every story should have a theme, a propagation, a climax, and an anticlimax. Otherwise, story will not work. You will be telling something, people will be talking something. If you want to engage them through stories, story has a structure. That elements you need to incorporate in that 1 minute short story. Then story works as an advanced organizer.
Any incident we can
something connected to this topic or related to this topic we can describe, but make all those things short, not consume the class time for that. The idea here is to get everybody's attention. Another simple way of doing advanced organizing here.
There is a paper which has come up with research methodology,
Okay.
which I have to teach statistics.
Huh.
So I was planning that there is a app called Pipebox,
Mhm.
in which there is a applause meter.
Okay.
So they can clap it
Yeah.
and how
The reading. Yeah.
So that
Applause meter you can demo, and then everybody claps. Now they are all towards whatever that content to be, towards that one small activity. It just doesn't have to be a lengthy activity, but something we have to do in the beginning of the class before you start your subject. That's called advanced organizing.
So should the students participate during that advanced organizing?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
only the teacher outlines?
So demo means normally teacher does. That's why I said I'm not very interested in that. But sometimes people do that. One of the things that I do is I go to the class and I ask a question. As simple as that. You ask a question, somebody will stand up. I will ask another question, that person stand up. One more person stand up. Class becomes silent. Everybody is now focused. That's good enough. My purpose is served. I'm not looking for answer now. I'm looking everybody's attention to the topic. Okay, so advanced organizer is as simple as that. Do something in the beginning to get everybody on the same page. Ask question is the easiest thing. Okay. Now, turn to partner. Turn to partner means students are sitting like this. No, he is a partner of him. So, what kind of things that we can ask in the classroom? Yeah. So I mean, physics. No, lot of calculations are there. Lot of calculations are there. Ask them to calculate. See, calculation essentially means what? Addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. But that they already know. So don't look for the numerical final answer. Don't spend class time for that. You throw a problem, slightly challenging. Teach them how to approach that problem. That much is good enough. So 3-4 minutes, you ask them, okay, this is a problem. What do you do? How do you approach? What do you do first? What do you do next? Let them figure it out. That activity is called turn to partner activity. When they do it together, sometimes students like that kind of things other than listening to a person for a long time. Okay. Summary activity. Yeah, concept mapping is a fantastic summary activity. This especially it works if you are teaching a topic like thermodynamics kind of thing where there are several concepts and you are asking them to map it like a tree diagram or a Venn diagram. You ask them to see one concept and another concept, how they are interconnected. Because textbook normally what they do is one chapter, one concept, questions on that. Next chapter, another concept, questions on that. How this concept and the first concept are interconnected. That textbooks normally don't do. So you can ask them to draw on a chart paper how these individual concepts are connected. That's called concept mapping. Any other summary activity?
Again,
Questions always work as an activity. Just ask 5 multiple choice questions at the end. What did you learn? So the idea of summary is what happens in that previous 50 minutes. They have to summarize it. That's all. Another way is ask them to write one summary line.
I used to do this
Mhm.
last 5 minutes.
Okay.
They should not write from top to bottom. They have to write from bottom to top.
The topic, the keywords.
At least 5 points.
5 points. Yeah. Some highlights, some points. There is a reason why we are doing this summary activity. In technical word, it's called elaborate rehearsal, which means the brain is trying to now taking things from short-term memory to long-term memory, put it in a systematic fashion. That helps them to retain things. So many of these activities are designed with some physiological or learning theory-based thing. They did not just suggest something. Okay. All right. Next. Forward. Next. So one of the things normally the FAQ for this kind of a classroom setup when we present lecture, activity. So people constantly ask these questions. You can read it. So book and model is one method for engaging learners. Okay. One more method. We have now 6 minutes. Yeah. Next. It's called studio physics, exclusively for physics teachers. What happens? This happens in MIT. Traditional lecture and recitation format for teaching the mechanics and electromagnetism course at MIT has traditionally had a 40 to 50% attendance rate. Nobody turns up. Even with good lectures and 10% of higher failure rate. So they started thinking how to teach physics in a different way. Studio physics denotes a format issued by Jack Wilson in 1994. The pedagogy has been modified and elaborated. But essentially, what does it mean is, go to the next slide. Active and cooperative learning. That means students sitting in teams. So in a class, there should be some infra, like a round table kind of thing, so that they can sit together. Or bench desk is also fine. Web-enabled classrooms, web-based assignments for students to solve the problems together. So there's no lecture. They come here, you'll have a computer or a laptop, problem is there. They have to work out in teams how to solve the problem. Teacher will be present in the class, teacher will be helping you. Then at some point you get stuck. How to proceed, you don't know, teacher help you. But teacher is not giving you any gyan. Okay. 5 hours of class per week is broken into two-hour sessions and a 1 hour problem solving session led by graduate student. So suppose there are 5 1-hour class in a week. They club into slightly longer session, so that the problem will be more demanding, challenging. It will take some time. So a 1-hour class may not be suitable for studio physics. A couple of hours students have to spend in teams. So this is another method where you can actually engage the students. There are many methods. Okay, I just picked up a couple of them. There are so many methods to engage students, and essentially engaging students means engage them cognitively, asking some questions. What are your questions now? About engaging learners.
Actually, there are a lot of constraints
Hmm.
for the private school teachers
Mhm.
where we cannot spend a lot of time on.
Hmm.
We do want to engage learners
Mhm.
by giving a lot of insightful experiences and what we really
Mhm.
But in spite of that, we do have a lot of constraints and finishing the functions and giving them and converting in terms of marks. So
Right.
there is a barrier. So how to fix this issue?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why people say I want to complete the syllabus, it is what exactly we mean by complete the syllabus. For us, the idea of completing syllabus is I, as a teacher, lecture on each topic. Then I say I have covered the syllabus. These are the terminology problem. Imagine a topic where you ask them to solve a problem on that. They learn by doing that problem. That's also covering the syllabus. Some of these things are having our connotation, the way that we define things. So take a step back. Don't take the learning responsibility. You just take the teaching responsibility, engage them, let them learn by themselves. You can help them always how to solve. Suppose sometimes they stuck, you tell how to do it. Let them do it. That's also covering the content. Why people are feeling constrained is they are thinking like I have to do the lecture the same way I'm doing. On the top, now I need to do activity also. Obviously, there is no time. So the answer to that question is some of the lectures we need to replace by activity. So total time is same. Other questions?
So, sorry to interrupt, but this what you say is a radical approach, and I think none of the schools will agree to this.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
You can ask the teachers.
yeah, so they will be apprehensive, obviously, but that's the only way. There is no shortcut to, or there's no royal way to geometry, right? If you want the students to be engaged, you have to do this. There's no other way. Whether they are willing or not is up to you. I mean, you have the choice. But don't say that I want, but I'm not doing it. Or you can say that I wanted to cover the syllabus. You are covering for what? 80% of the class is not learning. Why are you covering?
From top down, from the management, from the government policy itself, this is not there. They say activity, but they're not replacing by the.
I understand. So there's a real situation, but many of these things are now going towards bringing the institutions autonomous. Okay, so we are looking forward in a futuristic way. When an institute becomes autonomous, they have the ability to choose how the teaching learning process happens. Then, even then, I'm seeing difficulty because the mindset of teacher is, I want to complete the portions. So they're delinking the teaching from learning. They're only thinking my job. So that is something which is connected with the mindset problem. In psychology, they call it fixed mindset.
So I think this approach of basically subsections.
One second.
This approach of subsectioning in which activity is a part
Right.
of the major thing,
Right.
I think is better.
Yeah.
And in this one, when we are talking about that, when we allocate any work in a group, after that, what I do, I ask each group to present.
Yeah.
So that way, again, it is a peer learning.
Yeah.
And these days, there are some tools which are Padlet.
Mhm.
Padlet is something in which they can write simultaneously
Mhm.
the whole class.
Right.
And you can see that what each person is writing. So that is again becomes a peer learning.
Yeah.
Same is the case with Mentimeter,
Mentimeter,
Slido,
polariver.com. So many websites are there, so many tools are there. If you can engage them through any of these gadget-based tools, that's also good. The key thing is, when you say learner engagement, you need to make them work something. Otherwise, there is no learner engagement possibility. You want us? Madam, yes.
So nowadays the teachers are answerable to both parents, even the students as well as the management. So how can we manage all of them?
Yeah, so I mean,
practically it is very difficult. If, for example, if I am giving example or if I am giving some derivation part or discussion something else, immediately they are asking, ma'am, till now we are not completing or till now we are not entering into the derivation part. They are asking for semester or asking for exam.
So in the derivation you can actually engage. The book and model class that we just taught, can you think of a way that we can do derivation in the class by engaging
the subjects, for example, quantum mechanics, full of derivations and theory.
So what is the problem there? You can derive 2 steps. Third step you can ask them to derive. That's called learner engagement means. 4th and 5th you do. So right now you are doing entire steps. That is the problem. Stop at some point, ask one to just attempt. They may not be successful, but when they attempt, they are actually learning. That's how their learning growth improves. We are not looking for perfection. There is nothing called perfection in learning. Learning is always iterative. But we need to provide opportunities for them to actually engage them with the content. Okay. Thank you very much. I already exceeded 2 minutes. 3 minutes. Thank you.
Symposium. To our dedicated faculty and enthusiastic participants, thank you for your commitment and active participation. We are grateful to the Indian Association of Physics Teachers and IIPT RC13 for their collaboration and support. We thank DAV Group of Institutions for providing us with guest house for the resource person. Lastly, a special thanks to the organizing committee and volunteers for your hard work behind the scenes. Once again, thank you all for making this event a success. Let us carry forward the inspiration and knowledge gained today. Participants, the certificates will be distributed near the stage. Kindly collect them. Participants, the certificates will be distributed near the stage. Kindly collect them. Engaging session on learning engagement in teaching. Esteemed guests, respectful faculty members, and dear participants, As we conclude this national symposium, I extend our
Ma'am, may I now welcome ma'am for a feedback.
Let me call Dr. Sivishri Pasaman, Senior Physics Teacher, Chettinad Vidyashram, to give a feedback on this.
Very good evening to all. On behalf of all the participants here, I thank Madam Mitra ma'am and co-team for organizing such a wonderful session, and it is greatly enlightening for everyone, and especially for this session, Dr. Prasad sir, I wanted to express my sincere appreciation for your enlightenment talk, and it was completely insightful, and also the way in which how we have to engage our students by incorporating all the Bloom's taxonomy and how to get that output from the students very effectively. And I promise, sir, we will be just taking and carrying all the inputs, whatever you have given, and do our best for bringing the younger generation to this world a successful person. Thank you very much.
Now I will now request Dr. Selvakodan Nachiyar ma'am to felicitate our speaker with a certificate and fruit hamper.